Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, guys, the live stream this morning, I do think it's going to develop in the context that what I'm saying now may not be true and correct at the end of the live stream. What I'm talking about, obviously, is a cyber attack that is going on all over Europe at the moment, guys. As I understand it, like right now, there's Brussels Airport, Berlin Airport, and Heathrow Airport, obviously in the United Kingdom. So that's what we're getting at the moment. When I did a video earlier about the cyber attack, it wasn't confirmed that Heathrow Airport was under a cyber attack. Heathrow Airport has now come out and said they are under a cyber attack. Now, let's double this up with what happened yesterday in with Poland, Estonia. All these things now, you're starting to get this critical mass. And like I said yesterday on the live stream, these things could start by accident. These things could be one slight misjudgment, one miscommunication, one private soldier not listening, putting the wrong rounds in the chamber. Like something so small now could start this spark. And we're really looking for we're not looking for it. I think everybody's just waiting for that Franz Ferdinand moment. We have got absolute chaos on the streets of the United Kingdom at the moment, guys. It's absolutely bonkers. We have got Shabina Mahmood. Like, you know how we like right now, guys, we're safe. We have if you live in the United Kingdom, we have dealt mass illegal migration. It's dealt with. It's dealt with. Shabina Mahmood, she sorted it out. We get thousands in. We send one back and then we get another one. So that's it. It's sorted. It's sorted. It's so embarrassing. I watched I think it was Shabina Mahmood. It was either Shabina. I think it was Shabina Mahmood, but it might not have been. I watched the video of one of the Labour politicians and they were saying, we're in control. We've got our borders secure. And I honestly thought it was a parody. I thought, I had to actually check that, because you don't know now. We don't know now, do we? I actually had to check whether that was AI or not, and somebody was just somebody's just spoofing me. But no, apparently Shabina Mahmood, she says, we're in control now. We've got secure borders. Everything's fine. I mean, the one in, one out bill, guys, it's like, the one in, one out bill, it's so ridiculous. Right, I'm not even going to go on to that, guys. I might come on to one in, one out afterwards. Right, let me jump up and open these screens. I am on the back foot at the moment because I don't know if you guys can hear or not, but I've got pigeons. I've got pigeons on the roof at the moment. Right, let me open these screens up. That one. That one? No, wrong one. Right, Sky News. Heathrow warns of delays as cyber attack disrupts airport. European airports, including Heathrow Airport, are warning of delays after technical issues. That's the new thing they call it now, isn't it? Affected check-in and boarding systems. Brussels Airport said a cyber attack was causing the disruption, as it confirmed 10 flights have been cancelled. That's huge. And 17 were experiencing delays. It's too early to say when the problem will be resolved. So the problem is ongoing. I thought they might have, just rebooted that system, but I guess they can't. Flights cancelled after cyber attack hits European airports as Heathrow warns of delays. Live updates. What else have we got? NATO, and then NATO respond to Russian incursion of Estonian airspace. Right, so contextually now, I don't think it's me being. I think it's safe to say that Europe is under attack right now. I mean, we are certainly Europe is certainly under cyber attack. We're certainly under migrant attack. We are certainly under. We're certainly under, Russian probing attack by these aircraft. So I think it is fair to say right now that Europe is under attack. So what's happening? I think it's today, actually. It might be Monday. Right, Estonia is asking for a NATO to has invoked Article 4. That I can't find when that's going to be. Let me have a look. Right, it's not saying when it's going to be. Okay, so real quick, guys, I just want to flesh out for those of you guys who are maybe new to the channel, or for those of you who are maybe watching later on. I'm just going to explain real quick why Article 4 is more dangerous than Article 5. And I used to have this argument with sitting members of parliament, and they used to say that Article 5 is the protection. And I always used to say, okay, tell me what protection Article 5 gives you. So for those of you guys who don't know, everybody, NATO is an alliance of 32 nations, and they come together militarily. And that was initially constructed to oppose the threat from the Soviet Union. You can argue as much as you want. That's what happened. Now, as time's gone by, it's not become as relevant as it's not changed, basically. And what people rely on and what people think is that this is what people think. You know, if you're in a European country and you're part of NATO, you think that if the bad guys attack you, then all the other nations are just going to unleash all their missiles at that country. That is not going to happen in a million years, guys. All right. And I'll tell you why. So NATO Article 5, it says, and it does, that attack on one member state is deemed an attack on all member states. That is true. So what? So what? Absolutely. So what? You know, I mean, you could have like an there's no framework in there for a response. All that Article 5 says is we'll take whatever action necessary to restore peace and stability. Doesn't say there's going to be a big war. Doesn't say when. Doesn't give a timeline. It gives nothing. Article 4, however, that is a lot more potent because, and this is what we've had 3 countries now invoke Article 4 in the last. Poland, Estonia. No, is there another one? I'm sure there's 3. I'm pretty sure there's 3. Anyway, definitely Poland, definitely Estonia. I'm sure there was another one. I can't remember. Anyway, so we've had people invoking Article 4. What Article 4 is when everybody comes around the table and they're like, right, okay, what's the threat? This is the threat. You identify the threat and you identify the actions to be taken. So whereas NATO Article 5 doesn't really give you anything, NATO Article 4 gives you the means and the ability to strike back. And I don't know what's being said behind these closed doors. That's just what I'm telling you guys, okay? So now we've got definitely Poland who have invoked Article 4. Again, we don't know what's being said. Now Estonia. And in these meetings that they have behind the scenes, they will come to agreements whereby, right, okay, if we get Russian jets, if we get Russian drones, if we get an incursion, we will strike back and country X will provide this, country Y will provide this. You guys will come and do that. And everything gets agreed. That doesn't happen with NATO Article 5, not even remotely. And I would say people have been more hesitant under Article 5 to react. When it's a NATO Article 4 issue, it's just bureaucrats in a room, and there's it's literally just bureaucrats in a room. Anyway, let me get some comments, guys. I will be keeping an eye on this cyber attack. So as we know it at the moment, there are multiple airports down over Europe, Belgium, Brussels, and I guess London. Fecky37's joining. Rose Bella, Smokeless joining. Brand Designs Homeware's joining. Mary's joining. Lots of people joining. Hello, everybody that's joining. Anonymous Nine's joining. Patrick's joined. Abby Haley Callaghan. Hello, Abby. Hello, Abby. Hello, Abby Haley Callaghan. Neuro Nurture, I think that name is. And Blunty's joining. Hello, Blunty. Corey Reefin is saying, hi, mate. Hope you're good. I am good. I had a lot of chicken wings last night, so I may have to run to the toilet. I've also got pigeons on the roof that may get turned into pigeon wings. T is saying, hello to you, T. T and some little doggy footprints. I love those little doggy footprints. Lulswell is saying, hi. CC Outdoors is saying, morning, Sean. Any pairs fire maneuver going down this morning? I don't know. Maybe. I think that's in response to there was a guy on last night and he was asking me infantry level questions. And, you know, I'll be honest, guys, I've not done infantry stuff for a long time, but what he was asking was really rudimental. Scottish Sonia is saying, morning all. Google is saying, hi to you, Googly. Natalie is saying, morning all. Daniel Payne is saying, let's have it, Raven. Boots on the ground. Let's go. No, we should avoid wars at all costs. Corey Reefin, any news from your Ukraine contacts? No real big updates at the moment from Ukraine. Most of the updates are coming from Poland. I'm sure there's another country that I'm thinking of that's in my head. Romania, that's the one. Sorry, guys, Romania. Yeah, I knew there was three. So we've got incursions in Poland, Romania, and Estonia now. This is like, guys, look, and this has all happened in the space of a week. And now 3 cyber attacks today. 3 cyber attacks so far. Jody Lee saying, morning, everyone. Google it is saying, subscribers, can you friend me so I can add you to the group chat? Yeah, so there's a group chat going. It's wild. Like, you know, the group chat is wild. I will just say, like, be careful what you put in there because I don't know who's reading these messages, but if you could all add Googly so he can add you to the subscribers chat. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure Googly will let you guys know. Daniel Payne is saying, I've still got my webbing. Francesca's saying, morning all. Googly's saying to Jodie Lee, right. UK Veterans is saying 2 out, 10 in, more like. Yeah, so UK Veterans there is talking in regards to this. I'll try and get you the video in a minute. It's a joke. So here in the United Kingdom, we have got a new immigration policy, and that is like, it seems to me like for every 5,000 that come to the United Kingdom, we will send 1 back, but the French can veto that. So and the one we send back, we'll get another one. So I'm just confused how this is going to solve anything. Daniel Payne is saying, does the PM know when going to make Palestine state? He's going to create an eruption in the UK. Right, okay. So Daniel Payne here is saying, does the PM know that when so the British Prime Minister is going to recognize Palestine as a state? Remember, this is all in line with what I was saying like over a year ago. Well, we're getting these diversions now. We're getting Britain being very critical of what's happening in the Middle East, and then the Americans will be very critical of what's happening in Europe. So this has been done because of lessons learned from fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq simultaneously. If you fight a war on 2 fronts, just take it from pretend you're the Americans, for example, because they're the biggest guys in town, right? For the Americans, if they were to fight a war in the Middle East and a war in Europe, what they're actually doing is dividing their own forces and doubling their enemies. So it makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. America's the big boy in town. They don't need anybody to help them, to go into the Middle East. They can do that absolutely themselves. You got that, guy. You got that. Here in Europe, we've got enough stuff in Europe, and we have to deal with this threat in Europe ourselves because the Americans are going to be dealing with their issues over in the Middle East. So that's why it's happening. That's why the Prime Minister is recognizing Palestine as an actual state. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's absolutely smoke and mirrors, guys. And another big dynamic in the United Kingdom. We have a huge Muslim population. Now, if that Muslim population saw the government overtly supporting that war in, it's not a war anymore, is it? The conflicts in the Middle East, they'd be going crackers and they'd be less likely, and they would maybe even give a little bit of resistance when they get conscripted. Linda Lou is saying morning all. I'm saying morning all to you. Ash is saying morning. Carl is saying what's next, Sean? Honestly, Carl, I think we need to wait until next. I think the next big. Well, do you know what, Carl? The group collectively, we are under the impression that there's going to be something's going to happen next weekend. So next Friday, next Saturday, that's when we're looking at. That would fit in line with a lot of things that are happening holistically. So I think next Friday is going to be the next big movement. Google is saying subscribe. Can subscribers add him again? Huge crater under the North Sea was created by an asteroid impact. Oh, guys, I don't have capacity to think about asteroids right now. Joshua Harrison says, I took a pigeon to the vets yesterday. Did you eat it? Rachel Reeves due to speak at gambling lobbyist event amid 12 billion tax review. Listen, is saying morning. Corey Reefin is saying if Russia gets a hold of Ukraine and Poland, the three countries above are cut off from Europe. Martin Quinn saying morning all. Ash is saying I've heard this cyber attack is some kind of worm. Worm. There's a channel on TikTok giving updates. What, like an actual worm? Like a worm? Ash, can you give more context to that, please? Because I don't understand. Martin Quinn is saying it's a waste of taxpayers' money. I think you mean I think he's talking about the one in, one out thing there. Daniel Payne is saying I'm seeing rumors that the US wants to take back an Afghan airbase. Yeah, so the Afghan airbase they're talking about there is it's called Bagram. It's just north of Kabul. It's a real nice airbase. It's it's in a really good location. To the north, to the west, and to the east, it's covered by mountains. Those mountains are really mineral rich. I think it was the Peshmerga? Is it the Peshmerga? I think it's the Peshmerga who there's a lot of caves up there as well. The Russians couldn't flush them out of the caves back in the the 80s or the 90s. Laurie C is saying good morning to you. Ash is saying worm program that replicates itself every time you delete it. Right, okay. Look, guys, I wouldn't know anything about that. All right, and Ash said I shared it with you just before I came on the live. Right, okay. Well, I've not seen that. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna try and see if there's been any updates on the cyber attack, but I don't know how anyone now can say that Europe is not under attack. Right, live attacks from. I'll go with the Telegraph. Right, live updates. Service providers working to resolve cyber attacks. Flight radar. Yeah, it does not look like people can get these airports back online now. Do you guys feel safe? Would you guys feel safe right now traveling by air? Would you feel safe if you have to go to the airport and just jump on an airplane? Like, I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't. I'd be like, really? Really, with all those Russians flying around and encroaching on people's airspace and cyber attacks and all sorts of crazy stuff. I would honestly, guys, I would be hesitant to jump on an airplane right now. Oh, hang on. Here's this thing. Right. So the disruption affecting London Heathrow and other major European airports is linked to an attack on Collins Aerospace, which provides check-in boarding systems for multiple airlines globally. Right. Okay. So So this has been an attack on, again, like a third party. Collins Aerospace is an American aviation and defense company owned by parent business RTX, which also controls Raytheon, the defense contractor, and the aerospace firm Pratt & Whitney. So Pratt & Whitney make engines. So this is interesting. So what I'm reading right now, guys, is it's not an attack on, it's an attack on Raytheon. So I would like to know, and I would like to know what this, like, whether, because obviously the Raytheon are never going to, like, a private company, especially a defense company. So there's multiple levels to this, guys, what I'm finding right now. So if you're joining for the first time, I'm talking about the cyber attack right now. I'm just looking here on the Telegraph. Is it Telegraph? The Telegraph. The Telegraph are saying that this is it's come from an attack on a company called Collins Aerospace, which is owned by another company, which is also runs Raytheon. So basically, right now, what I'm saying, and I'm reading between the lines here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving you real-time speculation. This is actually an attack on Raytheon. Now, those big prime defense contractors, they are never in a million years going to ever admit that they've been hacked. Then no private company is ever going to, like, consciously admit they've had a cyber attack, because you know what? Do you know what people will do? They'll think, right, okay, Raytheon, you're not secure. I'm going to stop spending my billions of pounds on your missile systems. Or I think, what do Raytheon do? Yeah, Raytheon do missiles. However, what we can see now through Collins Aerospace is there is a chink in their armor. And you can't, like, when these things are out open to the public, you can't hide them. If the check-in's not working, like, you can't pretend it's working. You can't just say, oh, it is actually working. So really, I'm speculating now, guys, that this is the real issue here, is an attack on Raytheon. And I think that, I think that's why that's, could be key. Right, let me get some comments. Right, in fact, do you know what? Let me get that video from Shabina Mahmood. Right, let me get this video, because this is hilarious. I'm sure it was Shabina Mahmood. Hang on, give me a second. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Hang on. Right. Let me, hang on. Give me a second. So this is the video, right, that the Home Office, after removing one person, right, guys, listen, honestly, I thought this was I genuinely thought this was I thought this was a parody. So the Home Office have released this video. I'm just going to play the audio now. So this is after removing one person. After the government have managed to remove one person that may just come back, they may just literally say, well, do you know what? Thanks for deporting me, but I'm just going to get on the next boat and come back. So they released this video, and the caption is, the removal of small boat migrants to France has begun. They've removed one person at the time of releasing this video. As I understand it, they've removed 3 now. And now the images, it's showing people in a detention center, and these people from customs like, yeah, we're gonna remove you. It's a joke. Listen to the music. We are clear. If you arrive here illegally, you could be processed, detained, and removed from the United Kingdom. You could be. Probably won't be, but you could be. So what they're saying there, the Home Office, is if you come to the United Kingdom illegally, there's a tiny, 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 tiny chance you might be removed in a couple of years' time. But don't worry, we'll sort you out and we'll look after you until then. Did you guys know that, these Afghans, these Afghans that came over with this, from Afghanistan with this security leak? Do you know those people are going back to Afghanistan for, to see friends and family, having a little summer holiday? So we've given, this is how absurd it is. This is how absolutely absurd this is, guys, all right? So the Afghans that have come over, we have given them, we have just said, right, we will look after you now for the rest of your life. You don't ever have to work. We're going to give you a house. Everything, we're going to look after you now and all your kids for the rest of your life now. That's it. That's where you live. That's your house. We have got you, we've got you, and we're going to look after you. Because what we did in Afghanistan, we leaked your information, and you guys are now, all of you, you're being hunted. You're being hunted in Afghanistan. It's that bad in Afghanistan. They're going back for summer holidays. I'm not making that up, guys. It's in the mainstream media. And I think there was 5 Palestinian children that came over. Do you know how many people they brought with them? So 5 kids that came to get medical treatment in the UK. Do you know how many people they brought with them? I guess. So 5 children now. How many people would you expect? Like how many? 50. Yep, 50. So each child, adults. Absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. No, Ash is saying 5. No, Ash, the number was actually 10. The number was 10. There was 10 adults was accompanying each child. It's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, and then I'm just looking on Shabina's. Oh, here, is this it? Yeah, here we are, guys. No, here's the video. Here's the video. Right, you're going to listen to Shabina right now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, right, you're going to listen to Shabina right now. She's going to talk. Remember, this was the video that she released after 1 migrant had been released. I'm just going to let it play.
Smuggling gangs have run illegal and deadly small boat channel crossings. Their pitch to migrants was the false promise that if you cross our border illegally, you can stay here. Today, we have dealt a blow to those gangs. In August, the government struck a historic agreement with the French government. Now, 8 weeks later, the first forced removals of small boat migrants are underway. In return, we will soon accept the first legal migrants into this country, following strict security and eligibility checks. When I became Home Secretary, I said I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders. Today marks an important and historic first step.
So there you have it, guys. She's getting up there and they're dealing with it. They've got it. She's got this. Good old Shabina. Good old Shabina's dealing with everything. Thank goodness. What a fantastic person she is. Yeah, crackers, guys, crackers. Right, let me get the rest of these comments. Yeah, done that one. Right, Googly here is saying UK pension savers urged not to withdraw cash due to budget fear and rumour. So I'll give you guys, this is not financial advice. I'm not qualified to give anybody financial advice. What I will say is I'll tell you what I said to my dad. My dad last week or something, not last week, last year maybe, or the year before, he didn't know whether to withdraw his pension or not. You can take your pension out and say, thank you very much. You can do what, I don't know how it works, but you can withdraw the money from your pension. There's ways you can do it. And what I said to my dad was, look, Dad, by the time, like, or very soon in the next 10 years, that there isn't going to be like, pensions won't be a thing. You know, any money that you've got in a pension, you know, and I said this to my dad, and remember, guys, it's not financial advice. You know, I said I would get that money out now while you can, because in the future, I don't think pensions are going to be a thing. I think we're going to be on universal basic income, and any pension stuff and all that sort of stuff, it's just going to be gone. So, and I cashed my pension in as soon as I could, basically. So yeah, you know, people with pensions who've paid into that pension pot all their lives, that, like, you don't get much from that pension. You know, I had a friend who was I think he pays something ridiculous, like 600. I think he pays something ridiculous like 600 a month into a pension. And when he's, when he retires, and they keep moving the goalposts to when you can retire, when he retires, he gets something. I can't remember what he gets, but it's something like absolutely ridiculous. Asher's saying definitely not. Yeah, we talked about airplanes there. Daniel Payne, if I was flying. Pink Lady is saying flying to Turkey in 4 weeks. Oh no. Well, look, I mean, the key thing there is I think Turkey would be a relatively safe country to fly to, actually. Yeah, I do. Don't tell me, right? Yeah, I do think Turkey would be a relatively safe country to fly to, because the Turks do look like they would be allied with the allied with the Russians. Zara Sultana, I don't know who she is saying consults defamation lawyers after spat with Jeremy Corbyn over party funds. I don't know. I wouldn't even have the. I mean, I know who Jeremy Corbyn is. Google is saying just added a bunch of people to it. The growing river. Okay, right, guys, listen. We have got a group chat going that Google is dealing with. It's wild, it's kind of like the Wild West. Just be careful what you're writing in there, guys. I don't see all those messages. Just be careful, because like I know security services will be able to look at all messages. The last thing I want is me getting swatted because of you guys putting stuff on the group chat. Daniel Payne says, if it all kicks off, start flicking your eyelids. You're going to need them for the trenches. Google is saying Chinese agents given the license to spy on the House of Commons. Yeah, so there were the spying charges have been dropped to the alleged spying allegations to the Chinese nationals. Linda Lou is saying it's only a percentage of your pension you can take out before pension age. So Linda Lou, as I understand it, right? So Linda Lou, as I understand it, you can take all your pension out if you want to invest that into something, or you want to put that into a different investment. I don't know how it works, guys. Look, I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be an expert on pensions. But as I understand it, with pensions, you can take all of it out. So all your money, what you've paid in, you can put that into another thing, as long as that's for your pension. But you be in control of that. Oh wow, this is a big one. So Google is saying Russia claims control of a village in Dnipropetrovsk. Right. Dnipropetrovsk is central, and it's one of the places. Hang on, let me Google this. Okay, so right. Okay, is this the older one? Is it okay? Hang on. Right, I'm just trying to find the village name. If David Lammy was in that village, though, I know what they'd call David Lammy. Right, it's not telling me the name of the village. Right, okay, so I'll just put that in context. If you guys follow the what's it called, Deep State War map, it's a really good interactive map, and it shows you the front line of Ukraine. And what it's showing you is every day, literally every day, the Russians are pushing ground. Now, I don't think there can be a ceasefire or any sorts of shenanigans like that until the Russians make it up to the River Dnipro. It just makes absolutely no sense. You can't do it. All right, hang on. Let me Google this. Beerzov. Let me have a look on the maps where Beerzov is. Right. Okay. So it's okay. So that is. Oh no, that's definitely not Berzov. That's in Western Ukraine. Right, I'm gonna have to come back onto that because I don't actually. I will find out where that is. Paul Poops is saying, I took my pension out at 55 because of Starmer. Yeah, you know, look, guys, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm thinking the way the world is going at the moment, everybody is going to be on universal basic income. And as soon as everybody's on universal basic income, pensions just will be irrelevant. And people will say, well, you're getting more money than you would. We've had to do this, we've had to do that. But ultimately, that, you know, it's not financial advice. Right, Linda Lewis saying, yes, that's at pension age. You move your right. Okay, guys, look, I don't want to dwell on pensions while we're under cyber attack. Right, so if you're just joining for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, chaos over Europe. I don't know any other words that we can describe this at the moment, but it does look like Europe is under attack. Cyber attacks have hit. Let me just do a quick search, see if there's been any more. Right, update 13 minutes ago. EasyJet. EasyJet is saying, we don't expect any flight disruption on Saturday. We're okay. So EasyJet are all right. So if you're flying with EasyJet, you're okay. So for those of you just joining, there are 3 airports down at the moment due to a cyber attack. That is airport in Brussels, airport in Berlin, and Heathrow Airport in London. Now, what we're understanding is the cyber attack hit a company that operates the check-in terminals, I think. Now, that company is owned by Raytheon. And again, I may be getting these details slightly wrong, but that, as I'm understanding it from reading the mainstream, that company is owned by Raytheon. So what I'm seeing in this is actually that's nobody cares about the civilian side of it. What could be happening is this cyber attack could have actually affected, Raytheon could have actually had a hack, which is a bigger problem as we're heading into a global conflict at an industrial scale. We have got Poland, we have got Romania, and we have got now Estonia, all invoking Article 4. Article 4 is more potent than Article 5 when we're talking about striking, when we're talking about letting missiles rip, shooting aircraft down. Article 4 gives you the legal framework to do that, whereas Article 5 doesn't. Forget what anybody says about Article 5, ladies and gentlemen. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It was written in what, maybe 1949 or something? I don't know. I think it was written in 1949. It's irrelevant now. What is relevant now is whatever they come to an agreement in when they have these Article 4 meetings. So, for example, the Estonians will say, right, if these Russian jets fly over again, can we shoot them down? And if we shoot them down, are you guys going to back us up? And then they're in the room, and then they'll say, yep, we will, you shoot them down and we'll back you up. And then they say, right, sign that piece of paper there. You sign that piece of paper there. You sign that piece of paper there. And once that's done, they're legally it's legally binding then. It's legal, they have to do it. Whereas Article 5, it means nothing. It means absolute Article 5. Right. An attack on one member state is deemed an attack on all member states. Yes. What are you going to do? Nothing. Why? Because I don't have to. I don't have to do anything under Article 5. Yeah, but we've just been attacked and, one member state deemed all member states. Oh, Article 5. Yep. Nowhere in Article 5 does it say I have to go start sending missiles. Nowhere. That's what happens in Article 5. Article 4, right, guys, if we get attacked, what are you going to do? Right, Poland, what are you going to do? We will send tanks, of course. Right, okay, Germany, what will you do? Yeah, we send lots of air defense to you and we really smash those Soviets. So in that context, you get everything fleshed out in a legal framework. So Article 4 is for the flat, Article 4 is for Article 5 is for the media and people don't know what they're talking about. Article 4 is when you really write down what you're going to do, who's going to support you, timelines, capacity, and you've got that legal framework then. And then in your you can confidently fire those missiles, take out those aircraft, knowing that everybody's going to back you up and what everybody's going to do and everybody's roles and responsibilities. That's why things are really dangerous now, because Poland's invoked Article 4, Romania's invoked Article 4, Estonia have just invoked Article 4. So when they come to these meetings and they all get around the table, they're talking about these things and how they're going to move forwards. But as we are today, ladies and gentlemen, I do think it's fair to say Europe is under attack. And let's look, guys, and let's address the elephant in the room here. Sabotage. Sabotage is a massive, massive elephant in the room, guys. It is a massive elephant in the room. We have got in the United Kingdom, I would say over 1 million. I would say we've got, do you know what? I'm not even going to put a number on it. In the United Kingdom, I would speculate we have got a lot of people who would like to do the country harm. That's just all I'm going to say. Now, those people, do you think when they get activated, they're going to say, oh no, I'm not going to do anything to this country. They're giving me 3 meals a day and a roof over my head. I'm fleeing. I've had to fled some of the harshest conditions in where are they fleeing from? In France. I've had to flee the war in France. So we know this is going to happen. We also know that these cells, it was out in the mainstream media. I think it was it Bulgarians? I can't remember. There was a Russian spy ring, and they were operating out of a hotel. They were Eastern Europeans working in one of these hotels. And isn't that perfect, Rue? So now you've got your handlers working in the hotels as hotel staff. And when the migrants come in, this is total hypothetical now, guys, for entertainment purposes. But how far-fetched does this seem? All right, how far-fetched does this seem? So we know this from a fact. We know this is fact because it came out and it's been released and they've been charged. We know that Eastern Europeans working in hotels were working for the Russians. We know that. That's not me speculating. We know that. All right. So How likely do we think that there are other Eastern Europeans working in hotels? I don't know. I'm just asking a question. How likely does that think that's happening? So whatever that likelihood scale is, just have that in your mind now, right? Okay, fine. Okay. So do we think those people in those hotels have access to people who they could pay to commit criminal acts? And now you're starting to put this direction together, aren't you? Now you're starting to think, right, okay, so we've got potentially Russian cells now operating out of hotels in the UK, right? That's not me speculating, that's the thing. We have got thousands of undocumented fighting age men in those hotels. We have got a global conflict on an industrial scale that we're marching towards. So here's the question. With that information, do you think that those people in the hotels could recruit people to commit acts of sabotage? I would say, and everybody's opinion is fair. I would say the likelihood is high. I would say that is a high likelihood. We've seen this happen in other parts of the world as well. Right, I'm going to jump over and get some YouTube comments in a second, guys. But let me get these comments on. Wow! What just happened to the comments on TikTok? They just went crackers. Timsky is saying it would be a good thing to be on universal basic income. It would be a good thing to be on universal basic income, and I think universal basic income could lift everybody out of poverty. The problem is, what happens if, like in Vietnam, for example, so I don't know if you guys know this, but in Vietnam, I think 8.7 million bank accounts have just been deleted because the people with those bank accounts wouldn't register for a digital ID, so they've just had their bank accounts closed. That's just happened in Vietnam. So here's the thing: Timsky's saying it would be a good thing to have universal basic income. What if, for example, there was, I don't know, I'm just making this up, and this is total speculation. But what if there was like, and this is wild, what if there was like a crazy pandemic or a virus or something, like, and you didn't want to have a certain medication to deal with it? You was like, well, do you know what? I don't actually want to have that medication. Do you think that your universal basic income could get turned off? Or do you think people could say, hey, do you know what? Anybody who doesn't take this medication gets their universal basic income turned off? Or if you get seen at a protest, do you think they could turn it off? And once you start relying on that money, I just think it's a bad thing, guys. I think what they should do is get rid of all foreign investments from the UK, change the tax system, and then we can make our own money. That's what we should do. We need to be making our own money. Martin Quinn is saying, has anybody noticed their phone signal being going down? I haven't, Martin. No, I haven't. But do you know what? Maybe I have. I don't know. The phone signal's been going down in good areas. It's been weird. The network says it's okay. A lot of people with giffgaff have been affected. Paul Poops is saying, does that not being seen an act of... Right, okay. So Paul Poops is saying, is it not an act of war? Is a cyber attack not an act of war? It is, but the problem with the cyber attack, you've got to be able to say that's where it came from, and it's very difficult to do that. Whereas, like, if you use a missile to shoot an airplane down, it's easy to say, right, yeah, look, that missile came from country X, so we believe country X fired it. It's not hard to it's not hard to say. But unfortunately, with a cyber attack, it's very difficult to understand where that came from. Martin Quinn is saying the big we words, they don't do out until they're pushed and it's too late. I don't know what that means. So that, hang on a minute, Martin Quinn, are you saying there is a missile went into Poland yesterday? Or was it the aircraft you talking about? So I know there was an aircraft that went really close to the Polish, in the Baltic Sea, the oil drilling wells. Pink Lady is saying the Wi-Fi around Liverpool has been off lately. Martin Quinn is saying the media isn't showing everything that's going on over there. They lie. Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, I would say. Do you know what? I don't think the media lie. You know what they blatantly do? Right. Let me reword that. The people on the media, the anchors, they literally just read off script. So you know that person isn't lying. They just don't know what they're talking about, and they're just reading words. They don't know what that. I know what I'm talking about when I talk about war, conflict, tactics, equipment, 3 types of patrol, and the media. You know, like I don't know, whoever sat there on that desk, they will literally be just reading words off a teleprompter, and those words will be coming from someone else, will be coming from someone else, will be coming from someone else. Who'll be coming from someone else who's writing them down to fit an agenda. Martin Quinn is saying, I'll pin this, hang on. Martin Quinn is saying, if you watch some of the Russian soldiers, they are... Martin Quinn is saying, if you watch some of the Russian soldiers, they assure you they are going forwards, no mercy. Yeah, you know, this is like, I've been saying over a year, when everybody says Donald Trump's going to have peace in Ukraine, over a year, I was saying, like, I was going against what everybody was saying on mainstream. Like, everybody on the media was saying, oh, Trump's going to come in, there's going to be peace in the Middle East, we're all going to be linking arm in arm, singing Kumbaya. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. It can't happen. You know, you've got to understand culture. You've got to understand, and you've got to understand Vladimir Putin as well. You know, I don't want to. Vladimir Putin was at a very, 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 very impressionable age at the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, the Cuban Missile, I'm not going to go into it, but the Cuban Missile Crisis was, for me, the Cuban Missile Crisis was the beginning to the end of the Soviet Union. You know, Nikolai Khrushchev, he was hailed as, you know, savior of the world, and he stopped the world going into, you know, nuclear Armageddon. The opposite side of that was Khrushchev was weak, and from that weakness, Vladimir Putin then had to watch the slow degradation and destruction of the Soviet Union. Now, that will have shaped him now as a man. We've got to be very careful when we talk, you know, we've got to be very careful, guys, all right, what we teach our children. You know, and I've talked about it many, many, many times, the golden generation that we have right now. And if you're 16 and under, you are that golden generation. Because you guys, if you're 16 and under right now, you're going to be the ones that rebuild the United Kingdom. Or maybe you're going to be the ones that rebuild New England in Antarctica. Because by the time you guys are 40, all this sort of stuff's going to be dealt with. And we are going to be like trying to rebuild from crumbling ashes. Mike Quinn is saying in the next acts they will be cutting the undersea cable, the cables under the sea in the channel, what control the internet. I would speculate that there are already devices on those cables that are under the sea, you know, and those devices are either listening or ready to go bang. UK Veterans is saying, it appears things have escalated a lot. Yeah, massively. Like, you know, we've had air incursions into Poland, air incursions into Romania, air incursions into Estonia. Article 4's been invoked 3 times now. That's more potent than Article 5. So they will have now that legal framework to strike back. You know, somebody asked me on the chat yesterday, they said, Sean, who do you think is going to strike first, NATO or Russia? And I think NATO will strike first. I do. That's because that's what Russia wants. You know, Russia's flying these, you know, these aircraft really close when it shouldn't be, doing all these provocation flights. And at some point, as the build-up happens, somewhere someone will say, right, okay, if that aircraft comes within, I don't know, and I don't know what they've said in these Article 4 meetings, but somewhere it'll be right. If that aircraft comes within 20 miles of this facility, it's going down. And then the Russians will come and then somebody will be on a machine. It'll be like that with a button. It'll be like, right, it's 25 miles, 24 miles, 23 miles. His heart will be going, guys. I've had to fire. I've had to do similar stuff, and your heart's in your mouth, you know. And he'll be there and he'll be looking. He'll be saying it's 22 miles, 21 miles, 20 miles, 19. Bang, gone. That's it. That missile's gone. Released. Those aircraft are coming down. That is it now. That's it. There's no going back after that. And then the Russians will say, oh, our aircraft was shot down over international airspace. This is clear provocation of NATO wanting to destroy Russia. And then the Russian people will be, you know, this will all get spread to Russian media, and then that will mobilize the Russians. Because listen, guys, Russian culture and Ukrainian culture, it's very similar. There's differences, especially when you go out east of Europe, east of Ukraine. The similarities are a lot more. And the Russians do not like to be causing damage in that part of the world. They are, but they don't like the hand-to-hand, more personal fighting. Do you know what? Do you know what? I'm not even going to tell you guys, because I'm gonna wait till I jump over to YouTube, because I don't want to get the live stream banned. I've just looked at the time, so I will jump out over that. And in fact, hang on, I'll rephrase that. If the Russians don't like the war fighting with the Ukrainians because they see them as very similar culturally, how do you think the Russians would want to come through Europe where they don't see them similar culturally at all? Like, how do you think that would work? Right, guys, I've got lots. I'm gonna try and get these comments now as quickly as I can, and then I'm gonna jump over to YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've not done so already, can you please hit the buttons, the like, follow, subscribe, bell notification. If you're watching on TikTok, hit those buttons up there, the follow button. I really appreciate it when you guys do that. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the buttons down below, because I enjoy that as well. And if you're watching on X, then it's the buttons above. I keep you guys up to date with what's happening in the future. You only have to look back through my previous videos that I was doing last year. I was doing videos last year. Now Donald Trump's talking about things I was talking about last year. Elon Musk's talking about things I was talking about last year. So when I'm giving this analysis on what's happening, it's because I understand all different aspects. And not many people understand all these different aspects and can put them together. You know, they will understand one aspect and they will think everything is that aspect. But there is so many different, there's so much more complexities here, and people just don't understand those complexities and nuances. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I do. So I will be closing this new TikTok down in a minute. I'll be jumping over to YouTube. I'm the Real Raven 1 on YouTube, where I will continue this live stream. UK Veterans is saying, Timsky is saying, why would MI6 be doing what they're doing? I don't know what that's in response to. UK Veterans is saying, fleeing places like Iraq and Afghan and Syria, where we have been active. Google is saying, no solution yet to cyber attack. Brussels Airport says, yeah. So this cyber attack, remember this cyber attack, what we understand right now is this cyber attack is on a company, and that company is owned by Raytheon. Now, I'm seeing this as a, as an attack on Raytheon, which is an attack on a military industrial, on a military company. Martin Quinn is saying MI6 are putting advertisements up on the black market wanting spies. Yeah, no, it's on the black. Is it the black web or the dark internet? I didn't even know this was a thing. Martin Quinn again is saying if you end up on universal income, they will stop your money. Well, I think universal basic income, the way they pitch universal basic income is that it's for everyone. You can still work, you can still do other things, but that money is just what everybody gets, and that's to kickstart the economy. Timsky's saying, I've just had my digital ID over here. Remember, guys, digital ID in Vietnam, they're closing down people's bank accounts that don't want to register for digital ID. Martin Quinn is saying, you are going to war. If you don't go, we will stop your unit. Yes, yeah, that's exactly, yeah. Right. Everybody under 25, you're going to war. If you don't, we'll stop your universal basic income. And then you won't be able to pay your bills, so you'll be skint. So get yourself off to war. Timsky is saying it has over here, talk about that, digital ID, sorry. Google is saying, get on the front lines or we turn off your... Yeah, exactly. Martin Quinn is saying, Russia pushing and pushing and pushing until they lose their rag. Google is saying, Sean, keep an eye when you get pinged in the group chat. You will only be pinged. No, don't worry about it. Guys, listen, I always keep an eye on the chat. I'll keep an eye as much as I can. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down now on TikTok. I'm going to jump over to YouTube and we'll continue. And I will talk about what I believe the Russians would do in the context of moving into Europe. And if I don't see, and if you're not jumping over to TikTok, guys, then I will see you tonight at 8. And we're off. And we are off. Whew. That was, I had a lot to get through there. Right, let me close these screens out. Right, so I'm just going to real quick go through a little bit of cultural enrichment. So Russian culture and Ukrainian culture, it has its differences, but it has its similarities as well. So I know that a lot of Russians, they don't want to be fighting with Ukrainians because they see them as like cousins, I guess, are very similar peoples. But you know what the Russians would, in my opinion, love to do? Pillage their way through Europe. Pillage their, like, if you said to the Russians, do you want to go and pillage your way through Europe? They'd be like, da, конечно, чувак. They'd be like, yeah, I'm all over that. I mean, we saw this in the early days of the early days, in the 2022 invasion. I've spoken about this before. One of the things fascinated is the right word. One of the things I was absolutely fascinated with on, fascinated? Yeah, I think fascinated is the right word. I was fascinated with what the Russians were stealing. You can. So when the Russians went into Ukraine, 2022, when they rolled in with tanks, when they rolled out, they looted a load of stuff. But it's not what you think. They were stealing toilets, like porcelain toilets. They were stealing toilets. They were stealing washing machines. And, and I've got this image in I've got this image of, you guys can Google Russian tanks steal toilets and washing machines. You'll see the pictures. They're all over the internet. These Russian tanks leaving Ukraine, but they'd strapped like white porcelain toilets to the side of their tanks and washing machines. And when you think about that, you've got to think of the levels of depravity you know, that these Russians are under. To go into a country, you know, and steal the toilets, you know, and it fascinates me. You know, you've got you know when you've got to kind of like put yourself in that mindset. And a lot of people, you know, people don't do this. A lot of military analysts, they just don't do this. You know, forget what this company's built and forget what that company's built. Well, be conscious of it, but just forget it for now. Get yourselves right down to the bottom level. What's making those privates? What's going through those private soldiers' minds? Because if you can understand what's got, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you give that private soldier the best weapons in the world. If he doesn't want to use them, he's not going to use them. If he wants to go and steal toilet seats, he's going to go and steal toilet seats. You know, so you've got to put yourself in. You know, you've got to put yourself in that mindset. You've got to start to understand the differences in culture, which nobody understands. I can guarantee nobody in the British government understands this, you know, different cultures. They will get a white paper written by a colonel, and that colonel will ask somebody in the Ukrainian military to help them, and then they will give a slanter. It's just not real. It's not real, guys. It's all fake. But until you can understand that, you kind of can't understand the next step. So if we're talking about a war in Europe now, with Russia managing to push through Ukraine, or Russia threatening Estonia, Russia threatening Poland, Russia threatening Romania, if you were to ask the general Russian population, and remember, you know, every Russian is a potential conscript. And if you were to ask, in fact, you know, I'm not even going to speculate what the answer would be. I'm just going to let you speculate. If you were to ask people in Russia, do you want to go and pillage your way through Europe with some state-sponsored violence? Well, I'm not even going to give you guys what I think would the response be. And this is what people don't understand. We are not geared up for that here in the UK at the moment. In Europe, without the United States and the air power they bring to bear, the manpower they bring to bear, the naval power they bring to bear, we are not geared up for this. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with thousands, like millions maybe, of marauders with AK-47s just coming in and marauding? No tactics. You know, no tactics, no conventional logistic supplies, just groups of marauding men. How do you deal with that tactic? There's women, there's children. How do you deal with that? You see where I'm going, guys? You know, how with no discipline. How do you deal with that when you're trying to be disciplined? I can give you an analogy. You know, I think the analogy would fit. The analogy would be, you know, the American Civil War, when I like to call it the treasonous war. But when the British were forming square and using tactics and, you know, form line, form square, you know, and marching forwards, the Americans were in the woods picking people off using guerrilla tactics. We know now that is guerrilla tactics, and we know, you know, that's sniping. But that's what's going to happen. And when I give an analysis, and when I give this wild analysis, and I say, you know, I'm seeing that the United Kingdom will become part of the United States because this war will be fought in Europe. And again, I'm not seeing a win. The way we're structured at the moment, I'm not seeing a win. I mean, even if we could push our own conscripts to fight these guys, they'd be just as bad. They'd be just as bad. So I'm not seeing a win. And what people do is, you know, you get your colonels and they say, yes, our military our private soldiers are equipped with 1 times rifle, 5.56, 10 magazines, 2 grenades, the most impressive ballistic protection that money can buy, tactical helmets, boots, night vision goggles. Nobody cares. It's not going to matter. Do you know why? Because he's going to be fighting. One of him is going to be fighting 20 or 30 guys who are dressed in civilian clothes, just marauding with an AK-74 or whatever they can find. we're just not geared up for it, guys. We are not geared up for this war. Anyway, right, let me get some comments. Phil Q is saying Russia is deprived. Only Moscow and St. Petersburg really have infrastructure. Yes, I agree. The rest rely on the military machine and vodka. Yes, plenty of vodka, corner that. Yeah, I agree. So here's the thing, Phil. So Phil Q is saying, well, that's Phil Q's comment. Those deprived Russians, if you said to them, do you want to go and maraud your way through Europe and pillage your way through and take what you want, what do you think they'd say? And then do we think, like, you can imagine if they got to the UK, couldn't you? Like, we'd have to, yeah, you'd phone the police and you'd be like, yeah, there's marauding Russians. Right, well, lock your doors and windows. They're smashing their way in and killing everyone. Yes, well, we don't have any police to send at the moment. Oh, can we fight them? No, that's illegal. You're not allowed. Oh, so what are we supposed to do? Just sit there and wait. Okay. Endeavor to preserve is saying, love me some Heavenly Father. I don't know what that means, but I'm up for it. I'll have one. Tim Linsky is saying, when I was in East Africa, my mate went down. They robbed his boots before we got him. Yeah, so this marauding is a thing, and it's attractive to some people. Silly Galari is saying Russia is using North Korean soldiers in Ukraine. Yeah, they've been using them for quite a while. Actually, I had a friend in the military, and I'm not going to say that. I will. I started, so I said, I had a friend in the military who's out. Well, it's a friend of a friend, actually. And what he was saying is the Russians were putting cloths over their face, over the North Koreans' faces, who were dead. Who were putting like cloths over their faces and burning them. So when the coalition or anyone found them, they couldn't tell where they were from. It's pretty brutal if you think about it. Do you know what? This is a good question, actually. So Four Paws is saying, well, they're not illegal anymore, are they? So Four Paws is saying, are the illegals given a passport to go on holiday, and would it be British? So for those of you guys who don't know, a lot of the illegal migrants that come to the United Kingdom, and they're fleeing wars in their home country, and things are so bad they've had to leave everything and come to the UK, and we've given them sanctuary. A lot of them go back for holidays at like Christmas and summer because they don't really like it here. And Four Paws is asking a fair question. Are they given a passport, and would that passport be British? I don't know. I've not actually thought about that. Michael is saying, if you look at all the Russian vehicles, they are all the old school, no electrics. That tells me they're going to be using electric knockouts, missiles. So So the Russian, so this is one of the things I talk about with interoperability and I guess, is it exchangeability? Interoperability, yeah. And, like here in the West, we have all the technology, the best kit and equipment. When it breaks down, that's it. You can't repair it at the side of the road. I would speculate that a British drone operator can't operate a French drone. I would speculate that a French drone operator can't operate a German drone. So there's no interchangeableness in kit and equipment. There's no continuity. What it should be is the whole of NATO now needs to standardize their kit and equipment. So the Germans, the British, the Poles, the French, everybody are using the same vehicle. Maybe that's a Land Rover. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, everybody needs to use the same, because then if you get a vehicle that's damaged, you can use the parts from that vehicle to go into another vehicle. Same with weapons. If you get a damaged weapon and you've got two damaged weapons and one's a German weapon and one's a French weapon, you can't interchange those parts. But if you get standardizations, you can. And that's, something that the Russians, are excelling it. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. We went a little bit off topic, but the crux of this video was chaos in Europe. I don't know how we can say Europe is not under attack right now. Europe's under a cyber attack. We have got Poland, we have got Estonia, we have got Romania, all invoking Article 4 of the NATO alliance, which is more potent than Article 5 because Article 4 gives an actual framework for a kinetic strike, whereas Article 5 doesn't. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. I've got to get some waterproof membrane on the side of this extension. I will be back I'm going to try and get on before 8 this evening, maybe 7 or something. And guys, listen, if you're joining later on, are you guys going to bring like a bottle of wine or something, and we'll sit, we'll have a good time, we'll have a little. I might even put some music on, see where we go. Well, look, guys, we are literally we are marching forwards towards a global conflict on an industrial scale. There's no way out of it now. The inevitability is there. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you guys later. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and share and hit the buttons, guys. I really appreciate it when you guys do that.